got some emails asking if I had any more casserole recipes. And I think I've done at least one video, or it was a Mexican rice casserole. And I thought, you know, I'm going to do one better, because I'm going to show you how to make a casserole out of whatever you've got. The whole point of a casserole originated to use up things that you had in the refrigerator to conserve food and not waste food and conserve your food budget money. So this is Casserole 101. So this is going to be sort of a loose recipe, and it's made so you can use what you've got to make your own casserole. So the first thing you need is a big old casserole dish, and if you're from the South, these things accumulate in your house like I don't know. You start out with one casserole dish when you get married, and then you get a couple more for wedding gifts, and then you found one at a garage sale, and oh, this is a neat one. This is an oval one. I found that at Goodwill, and before you know it, you got 4 cabinets full of casserole dishes, and you're like, what happened? But then you're going to start weeding them out, and you're like, but I like this one. This one's good for that, and that one's good for this, and so it's a thing. So you want to start with a good casserole. This one I think is a 16 by 10. I have a couple that are really big because I've got a lot of kids. I got a lot of people in the family I got to feed. Just a couple of you, then the little 9 by 11 will be fine. Let's talk about the start of your casserole. You have 3 bases you can pick from: pasta, potatoes, or rice. And so you want to pick, usually you're not going to see all of those in one, and you're only going to see one of those in there. Today I have some leftover veggies from, I made a roast chicken last night, and so I had all these roasted potatoes and carrots I need to use up. So I'm going to go ahead and throw those potatoes in with my noodles, even though I don't normally cross my bases or starches. I'm using egg noodles as my base. I'm going to go ahead and dump those in while we're talking. And if this is a quick casserole, so on this one I'm using, everything's been canned, either by me or by the industrial complex. Except for I had, one of the things that threw the train off the track today was my imperfect produce arrived. And it arrived a day earlier, so I wasn't counting on that being in the mix. So then I got to wash all that, put it all away, and then I filmed it and all that mess. But anyway, so one of the things that arrived in my box was a green pepper that looked like it had been slashed in half. So I needed to use that right away. So I cut it, and because it isn't pre-cooked, because I'm counting on this being a quick casserole, that everything has been sort of cooked. I got cans of carrots, I've got a can of chicken that I've already canned. So I've chopped up my green pepper and I threw it in the water that's cooking my noodles. That way I just threw it right in there before the water even started heating up, so it's been cooking the whole time. The water's been reaching a boiling point, and now I've got my noodles in there for 10 minutes. So hopefully that will soften up the green pepper enough to match the other veggies. Otherwise it's going to be a little bit crunchy, and that's okay. The thing about a casserole is it's very forgiving, and you got to learn with your spices and your seasons to make an appetizing concoction. And that's what some of my kids, you know, they'll say, what's for dinner meal? I don't know, something involving that jar of chicken. And that's all I know. And if things happen and pile on, especially when the kids were younger, you know, at that point it's like you were really going off the seat of your pants making that casserole. As you start doing it and being a little bit more adventurous, you'll be able to come up with a recipe or multiple different casseroles that your family enjoys. So I've got my egg noodles. You can use any kind of pasta. Elbow noodles are really great. Kids love those. If you have little fancy noodles, you can mix your noodles. If you only have half a bag of egg noodles and a half a bag of elbow noodles, mix them, whatever. Throw them in there. So this is a budget-friendly, money-saving, I want to say recipe, but process. Let's do process. Okay, so you will either have one of the 3, pasta, rice, or potatoes. Pick it and make it. Now, some of your rice recipes, I think the Mexican rice recipe that I made, you can actually cook the rice in the casserole, but it takes longer. So this casserole, what I'm telling you right now, is we are assuming everything is pre-cooked. So I'm cooking my noodles right now, and then I'll be dumping them into the casserole dish. And so these are cooking. Alright, the next thing that's going to be in a casserole is usually some kind of meat. If you're using meat that hasn't been cooked, then you'll make your whole casserole and you'll lay your meat on top. so your meat cooks. This is a casserole where we're assuming everything has been cooked. So I'm using pressure canned chicken that I've made. So this meat has been roasted and then it's been canned in a jar. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. I'm just using 1 pint jar. That's another good thing about casseroles. If you're vegan, you don't have to use any meat. You can use some kind of meat substitute. If you like a texture of meat, you can use some cut up tofu. But for me, I'm using 1 pint of, it's mostly chicken breast. There's some other pieces in there too. So that's ready to go. So there's your meat, or meatless if you don't want it. You need some kind of like a sauce base. What I usually use is cream of mushroom soup. Now you could make your own roux, R-O-U-X. You could make that yourself with flour, and sometimes people use a broth, some people use water, whatever, but that is so time consuming. So cream of mushroom soup, you can use cream of chicken soup, you can use cream of celery soup. If you're making some sort of Mexican or even some Italian leaning casseroles, you can use cheddar cheese soup, and there's different flavors of the cheddar cheese soup. But I usually stock a ton, and I do mean a ton, of cans of mushroom soup. And I don't always have the Campbell's. This is, for me, when I have a brand name, it's like, ooh, Uptown. Because I normally just buy whatever's cheapest, but there must have been some bulk. Sometimes when you buy in bulk, it's actually cheaper per can. So you want, for the big size that I'm making, again, if you're doing just a little 11 by whatever that is, 11 by 8, 11 by 9, whatever the little one is, or even the square 8 by 8, you probably could get away with one can. I always think it's better to have it more saucy than necessary than not enough sauce, because dry is not fun unless you have some kind of gravy or something to put over it. So I'm going to do 2 cans of cream of mushroom soup. In your sauce, you'll usually also want to throw in some kind of cheese. For a while, I had a pretty good stockpile of white cheddar cheese because Imperfect Foods had them. No more. So I just happened to have, Chris made enchiladas this weekend, so I just happened to have a bag of this frou-frou shredded cheese. It's not frou-frou, it's actually just Tom Thumb Safeway brand. But Chris always buys the pre-shredded, so I'm always like, ooh, labor saving, because I always shred my own. So, but I have this bag, so that's the cheese I have. And it's like a Mexican flavored cheese, 4-cheese blend, but hey, cheese is cheese. Alright, so that's going to be my sauce, and I have some home canned turkey broth. I was aiming for a canned jar of chicken broth, but then I remembered that I had frozen and made a whole bunch of this turkey broth the last time I made a turkey. So I thought I'll just grab one of those turkey broths. So I defrosted that. So I have that. Okay, so you have your base, your pasta, rice, or your potatoes. You have your sauce, which is 2 cans of cream of something soup and at least 8 ounces of cheese. And then you need your selection of veggies. I happen to be using 1 can of sliced carrots, a can of corn, and then I had a portion of roasted veggies from last night that had carrots, potatoes, and green beans in it. And I'm just using those up because there's about 2 cups. That's a lot of veggies. I also have, because my daughter made some recipe a couple weeks ago, and I don't remember what it was for her boyfriend, but she bought this whole big jar of already minced garlic. So I've been trying to use that up because we don't want to let that go to waste, because I don't normally buy it all fancy pants like this. I buy just the clove of garlic, or I have my own in the garden. She didn't realize there was any out there, and she went and bought this whole jar. So we're using that up. So that's what this is about, using what you have to make something good. Let's talk about seasoning. If you're doing an Italian, so you've had spaghetti, you've had lasagna, so you sort of know those flavors: oregano, salt and pepper, basil, if you like that in there, garlic, onion. So those are like Italian. A Mexican flavor would be cilantro, chili pepper, paprika, red pepper, cayenne. Again, salt and pepper, onion. There's different tastes that go with different things. I'm doing just a general chicken veggie casserole. I'm not chopping up an onion because I'm doing the quick casserole, so everything is pre-cooked. So if I chopped up an onion, it would be more crunchy. I'm just using minced onion today. I have garlic powder, and I'm not going to use too much of that because I am using the actual garlic. I got salt and pepper. And I got parsley just because I have it growing out in the garden and I throw it in with everything. And then I'm going to be adding crushed red pepper because we like things hot. And so I figure everything's better with crushed red pepper. That might not be your experience. For me, I'm a big paprika, garlic powder, and crushed red pepper girl. Almost everything I make is probably going to get crushed red pepper in it eventually. Those are the spices I'm going to be using with my noodle base. So, my noodles are almost done. My noodles drained, and I remember I got that green pepper in there if it looks weird. And then I've drained my can of carrots, I've drained my can of corn, and then I've put my drained veggies in there. And I might say if you're using potatoes, you can also use canned potatoes, and they're softer, and that will cut down on some of your cooking time. So I do have these, like I just said, I don't usually cross the starches, but those were left over from last night. Oh, and then I'm also I'm gonna throw like a teaspoon of garlic in there. Put my chicken in there. If you don't have canned chicken, you can boil chicken legs or whatever previous to making your casserole, and then take them off the bone. I'm going to sprinkle in some parsley. We're going to mix all this up here. Some pepper and some salt. And do a little garlic powder. I do have the garlic in there, so I don't want to do too much. I'm putting in some minced onion. Again, if you wanted to use an actual onion, you could cut it up prior and throw it in the water with your rice or your noodles. I'm just doing a dash of seasoning salt. And I'm doing some red pepper. Crushed red pepper, not cayenne. You could add cayenne if you wanted to, but this is crushed red pepper. Got my cream of mushroom soup. And before I toss my can, I'm gonna put the chicken broth or the turkey broth, whatever you're using, in there, and it sort of will wash out a little bit more of the soup. Start with about 1 can of the broth, which is about 10 ounces here. And then I'm going to start you can use any kind. You can also use beef and hamburger. You could do like you had leftover taco stuff. You could do like a Mexican style one. You could do barbecue beef, potatoes, and green beans. I've done that before. Like if I had a little bit of leftover pulled pork or a shredded beef barbecue, I've done that. I've mixed that up with some noodles, or you could do sliced potatoes. That's always good. Add some cheese. I'm going to mix that cheese in. Go ahead and use a little bit more of the broth. Cut off. You could use, I usually save I have these little packets that we have left over that the kids had, and no one likes the plain ones. So I use those. Also, I save the end, you know, like when you get a bag of potato chips and just the crunchy little tiny pieces are left at the bottom. I save those and use those for this. I usually keep them in a big bag. Dash of seasoning salt at the top of it. And then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more cheese on the top. I'm going to cover it with some foil. Bake it at 350 for about 30 or 40 minutes. Look at the casserole, and I put it in uncovered it, put it in for 5 more minutes. I had done it for 30 minutes. I put it in for 5 more minutes so it will brown the top, and then it is out of the oven. There we have it. So what I did was just a chicken veggie noodle casserole, and it wasn't complicated. I hope you can use this Casserole 101 video to start experimenting with your leftovers and your canned vegetables and meats in order to make budget-friendly and family-pleasing recipes. This is Angie from Canterbury Trails Farm. Thanks for visiting with us today. Bye.